What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Artist of Data Science open office hours. Just getting it kicked off right now. Waiting on people to join the room. But while people are joining the room, I just want to go ahead and take a moment to talk about what it means to be a mentor in data science. So we open office hours the same way every single time. And that's just reading from a post that Giuseppe Bonacarso had put up maybe a few weeks ago at this point. But what is a mentor, right? Neither professor nor master, just a friend that can help support you, not the repository of all knowledge. And I don't place myself in either the professor nor master category. Mentor is also not a substitute for books, Stack Overflow, or whatever else you can use to autonomously solve your own problem, right? I'm here to help by sharing my experience and maybe a little bit of my knowledge, of which there's not a lot. I'm also not going to influence any important decisions that you have. Discussions are definitely essential, but I'm going to be talking through things with you. I'm also going to ask a lot of questions, right? So you can think of this as a friendly relationship. I'm going to be pushing you to imagine different scenarios, discuss, criticize, and expand them. And, try to be as helpful as possible. So we had a couple of awesome episodes released this week. On Monday, we had an episode released with Emily Robinson and Jacqueline Nolis, the authors of Building a Career in Data Science. Definitely check out that interview if you haven't had a chance yet, and definitely go out and get that book. It is an amazing book, and the interview with them was a lot of fun. First time I've ever done an interview with two people, and it was just a lot of fun.
I just listened to that.
Yeah.
Am I interrupting a thing? I just listened to that yesterday.
How was it?
I loved that interview.
Yeah, it was a really, really good interview, man.
Yeah, it was like, oh, this is like real life. Like, this is how managers think. This is how business people are. And it just felt like everything they were saying, they said better than I could have ever dreamt of saying it. Like, they made it so simple.
Yeah, it's super, super relatable, man. I really, really enjoyed that episode.
Can you drop the name of the book one more time?
Yeah, it's Building a Career in Data Science, and that's by Manning Publication. And if you go to Manning Publication and you enter the code ARTISTS20, ARTISTS 20, you'll get 20% off that book. If that one doesn't work, try PODDART, Pod Art 20. But if neither of those works, just email me. I'll get you the code. I have it somewhere. And yeah, so that was Monday, great episode. And then on Thursday, released an episode that was an introduction to Stoicism, speaking with a author of a couple of books on Stoicism. I thought that was a really good episode. So hopefully you guys got a chance to check that out. Right now, in office hours, we got a few people hanging out. We got Carlos, Mark, and Hasib. How's it going, guys?
It's been going well. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Just got done with an interview just a few minutes before this. I was interviewing Kate Strachny for the podcast, so look for that one in the near future.
You got everybody on this show, man. I don't know how you do it. Does nobody ever say no? Everyone's just like, of course? Or do you just like not get any answers if they're saying no?
I got a few people that said no. Charles Duhigg said no.
You don't got to call them out. You don't gotta call them out.
James Clear said no. These are like New York Times bestselling authors. So the big name said no, but it's all good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yo, Mark, I haven't met you outside of LinkedIn comments. What's up, man?
Yeah, how you doing? It's good to see you put a face to the person. The great comments.
Yeah, I've been getting Mark on the LinkedIn game. I'm like, Mark, nice. You know too much. You gotta start posting stuff. I think you are. I think I see you. A lot of health stuff.
I was posting a lot, and then I got a job, and then got really busy again. I'm trying to post at least once a week.
What's that joke? It's like Twitter's boring until noon when all the unemployed people and it's like, that's so rude.
But LinkedIn's like always constantly busy. Like I feel like there's always stuff happening.
I actually am starting to think it's content saturated, honestly.
Yeah.
In
I'm
the
like,
beginning, honestly, I would say sometimes I used to get depressed, seeing all the posts. I feel like, I used to underestimate myself seeing those posts. But, when I started to study more in deep, then I got pretty much comfortable with stats and others.
Talk to me
yeah,
about that, man. I'm curious. Like, what do you mean by underestimating yourself? Because I feel like this is actually a
Yeah,
phenomenon that
because
happens a lot.
every time I used to see the post, there was something new, and I felt like I felt like there are so many things, and I don't even know these things. That how am I gonna like
Yeah,
break into this field? And when I used to see the jobs posted, they used to require a whole bunch of things, and out of those skills, I used to like see that, oh, I only have like two or three of them, so how I'm gonna manage the rest of them. So
yeah,
then after like following a couple of data science influencers, they actually like put this thing out that that these recruiters sometimes they don't put a realistic picture.
that's
yeah,
probably the most like debilitating part. Like, I think if I started looking, if I like was just shifted 4 years forward to today, starting out, I'd be like, what is PyTorch? What is like Keras? What is Kubernetes? Like, there's just so many of them. And no one tells you that 7 of them are just different flavors of the same thing.
Exactly.
Like, no one
Yeah,
tells you that. You
I
just think
agree.
they're all different, and you're like, I'm
Hmm.
never gonna do this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you listen to the podcast, like I make a point to ask pretty much everybody who's in a hiring manager position what they think about this phenomenon of crazy job descriptions, and pretty much all of them say the same thing. It's that it's typically not the data scientists themselves that are creating the job description. It's somebody in
Hmm.
HR that's creating the job description, and they're doing what anybody who doesn't know what they're doing would do, and that's go online and look at other stuff and
Hmm.
Yeah,
copy
I
and
mean,
paste bits and pieces of it.
well, I mean, the context there though too is that like the HR people who are like extremely busy, the best recruiters and all that stuff, they're swamped. They have 55 roles open. So it falls to the junior HR staff and the junior recruiters to do like the grunt writing for
Mhm.
the senior person to actually post out there and manage. So it's like they're not even being set up to like succeed in some ways because they're just so overwhelmed. They're just like, let's just it's
Yeah,
another wreck. Just I don't know. I
yeah,
would not want to be in their shoes, man.
yeah.
Especially right
I
now.
write all my own job postings. Like, I mean, haven't done it in a while, but the last few that I've done, I made sure I wrote it myself just to keep them realistic. And then with respect to just like the stuff that you need to learn, I think beyond a few core fundamental basics, everything else you can learn when you need to learn it on demand. Like, you don't need to know everything and then start applying. You know what I mean? Like that's like a really unreasonable expectation, I think, for anybody to have. So just
It's
the
because of
core
the
basics.
crunch, man. Like after 2008, everyone who was 22 through 25 all got squished together career wise, and then like our age group kind of graduated and we're crunched. So it's just like the market for 0 to 4 years of experience is just full, and then people with like 5 to 10 are transitioning, so they're now entering the pool. Like the glut is all at the bottom. I actually think some people who are transitioning need to think a little higher up and go for senior roles. It's like, oh, you've been a software engineer for 10 years and you're picking up data science. Why are you trying to start at the bottom, bro? That's like the worst spot.
Yeah, yeah. You have transferable skills that you can move up. But Hasib here has got a question. So yeah, Hasib, go for it, man.
Yeah. So my question was kind of related to a methodological review of a problem I was going to solve, and I started on it. So I was just wondering if is this the wrong time to like discuss that problem and the approach I followed, or like
It's the perfect time.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
perfect. So I was solving a data set which was having a few features. Like when I say few features, mean like as compared to the bigger data set, it was just having like 8 to 10 features, and the outcome variable was continuous. So seeing that the outcome variables was continuous, the first thing popped in my mind was that it's a regression problem. Okay. So my first step was, like starting from cleaning the data set, validating each and everything, seeing that everything is aligned. Uh, I won't be mentioning all of the steps which I taken, but I'll just telling you the bigger part of the story, that after the data cleaning, I just went on to the exploratory data analysis, just to see within each the variable, do we have the variables following the Gaussian distribution or not? Do they require transformations and log transformation or square root transformation? So
Can I
that.
pause really quick? I just want
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
note two things really fast. You said that the dependent variable was continuous and that made it a regression problem. It's not necessarily true. And also, you might have a continuous dependent variable right now, but you might not actually be targeting that. You might have that might be an input into a function that is leading to your feature of interest. So like, oh, my revenue is really big. My revenue is going up. And that's great. But what if your target is like revenue per employee? Or what if your target is, above or below some growth target percentage? So just be careful, with the dependent variable defining your problem too soon. And then also you said,
Gaussian distribution for all the features. Like I don't
yeah,
think
you
that's
said
necessarily.
you said you're going to transform features. Like
Yeah.
when you transform features, two things. You're transforming features, that's something you got to be thinking about on purpose. Do very purposefully. And two, transforming features on a regression problem changes the definition and the unit of your coefficients. So you're are risking destroying the interpretability. So you're layering conflicting things. I'm not saying you made any mistakes. I do this stuff all the time too. But just as you're going along, what are the risks of this choice? What are the risks of this choice?
Yeah.
Perfect. So
nothing's automatic.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
Keep
why
going.
I did that, because the data set which I was solving, it didn't have any information regarding what the columns or what the features are actually are like in real. So the target variable was named as y, and the input variables were named as var1, var2, variable
Oh,
3,
is this
variable.
like a Kaggle competition or something?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a Kaggle competition.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe be mean. I don't want to be mean on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Kaggle competitions that are structured that way, like here's X's, here's Y, please make the best model,
Mm-hmm.
are not going to teach you what you kind of need to learn.
Okay, perfect.
Because that's just such an automatic question. It's just if someone gave me that at my job, like Carlos, please predict Y given X's, I'd be like, AWS, SageMaker, AutoML to 99, go. I wouldn't even use my brain on that problem. So just be careful with Kaggle and stuff like that, because it's good for practicing. Syntax is good for practicing, model choice selection and an EDA. It sounds like you did a lot of really good EDA. But that's just not a real life. It's too far removed from real life. Here's a bunch of X's and a Y. That's too far away from real life, I would say.
AWS has a lot of great data sets too for free that has real world messy data that's open source. That's really good. And then also because I think going on with the Y values and stuff like that, I think a big part of at least for me, what I've seen from my work is domain knowledge helps out so much. And so when things are just set as Y, you don't get that experience of digging in, searching what happened at this time, or why is it being structured this way. And I think that's a really useful skill that's helped me a little bit.
Plus, it limits your portfolio value. When you're done and you put it on your GitHub, a recruiter can't use it. It's oh, they predicted Y really well. I wonder what Y was.
Yeah. So my question is, so the approach which I'm following right now, is it making any sense, or is it the correct way? Because I have not been given any information regarding the variables, and they have just the name variable 1, 2, and the outcome variable name is y. So in this particular case, do you think it's an appropriate approach to go with, or what else can be done? What are your thoughts in this thing?
I mean, for barring everything that was just said, which was all good points, it's just a toy data set. So the way you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of performance is feature engineering, right?
Okay.
Without labeled columns, it becomes very difficult to intelligently build out features, right? So one thing you could do is to start taking ratios of a couple of features to build out some of that complexity, right? Like this is like if I had a data set with just a bunch of variables that I did not know what they meant, like I would first not go with a linear model like at all. I would just do a tree-based regression. And then with that tree-based regression, like even before I fit it, I would try to just start dividing columns and just
You
see what
mean,
happens, right?
are you thinking cart specifically?
Not just cart. Like I mean, you boosting, do a little bit of
Okay.
add a
Just curious.
boost, gradient boost, extreme gradient boost, like any tree-based method. Just because linear models, you have to make a lot of assumptions, and I don't know if I'd be comfortable making assumptions when I have very little information about the data set.
I think you did the right thing, though. I would say in general, like in terms of like I checked the distribution of each variable. You thought about transforming. You probably shouldn't have in that case, but you thought like it's a good question to ask. I think I would note though that transforming x's is probably something I would think of after thinking of transforming y's. Like I would be like, okay, well, can I make this a binary classification problem and use logistic regression with some cutoff? Like that's probably how I would go. I think you did the right thing. I think something you didn't say you did was you didn't check to make sure the x's weren't linear combinations of other x's.
Yeah.
That's something you really want to check just in general, because that's like the easiest violation in regression to make. And then I would just also add, lastly, you can do like you can do like tests. So you can like correlate different columns, and then you can randomize a column and then check the correlation again. And what that'll tell you is like, it's not a significance test, but it helps you gauge whether or not significance and correlation is actually going to help you. Because if you correlate two columns and it's like 23, and you're like, that sounds useful. Like in economics, that's like super good. And then you randomize it and you get 21, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like hitting random lucky features. And you need to find that out really quickly. You want to find out how quickly you're accidentally in like a random accident.
Yeah, so after that, like I went on, checking whether the assumptions are being satisfied. So I just noted down like 4 or 5 assumptions, and I went to verify that whether the assumptions are being satisfied or not. And then I found there was multicollinearity in the variables. So I went on with the regularization techniques, and yeah.
So again, regularization, are you talking about ridge or lasso or?
Both. I went for both just to check whether, my performance is increasing or not. And after that, I couldn't get, much of the performance because I found that lasso and ridge are both the family of linear regression. So even the performance wasn't increasing because I thought that we are still, creating a bias in the model. So then I went
when you say performance, what do you mean?
Coefficient of determination, R square.
Okay, be careful. That goes up every time you add variables, but that's okay. So again, you're using regularization. The point of regularization is to help you do feature importance more so than it is to like be really, really effective.
Those features are not really, they are not associated with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even use a linear model. I would just use a tree-based, especially in this case, flying blind. And because when you have a tree-based model, then you don't really care. Like multicollinearity is just whatever, right? Tree-based models they don't really get affected too much by that. But if you're trying to do some feature selection technique, then variance inflation factor, whatever, you can use that to drop some features if you want to. But
Harpreet's dropping the real stats over here, guys. He's talking like he's saying things and I'm like, oh, I forgot that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, variance inflation factor is essentially the same thing checking for linear combinations, right? That's pretty much the only way you'd have multicollinearity is if you have features that are linear combinations of each other, and the variance inflation factor is one way to check that. But I would start with a simple tree-based model, right? Like, do you have a baseline model? Like, what do you have? Do you have a line in the sand right now to tell you that, okay, this performance metric is what I need to improve on. Get that first, right? So it looks like you've prepped your data set up like perfectly. I would say even before doing any type of transformations to your feature, leave everything in its raw form, right? Fit a simple random forest, right? Don't tune any hyperparameters or anything, and determine what your metric is in that case. Now you have a baseline. Now you have a line in the sand, right? Now you can say anything I do after this that is more complex than what I've done up to this point, it needs to do better than this. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time or heading in the wrong direction, right?
Harpreet, have you used a predictive power score?
I have not. No. Tell me about this.
This package this guy wrote came out in Python. It was the only reason I ever had to learn Python. I was like, I do code review to Python, no problem. It's very easy to read. But this is like the thing that actually made me use it. So I had to download Python 3 point whatever, and predictive power score uses it's like a really basic decision tree, but the idea is that instead of exactly, Mark's saying, isn't that the article that says like, no, it's the article that says correlation's bad, and they're right.
Oh, correlation. Okay.
Yeah, correlation's bad because it assumes symmetric relationships, and predictive power score does not assume symmetric relationships. So what it does is it uses like a very basic decision tree just to say like this feature is this level of predictive on this feature, and it's asymmetric. So like X cannot be 0.3 on Y, but then Y is 0.05 on X. That's super interesting because like it's like a better correlation table pretty much. And that's something that's like, it's a one-liner in Python. And for that exact problem, you're like, I don't know what these things are. Like that it'll just jumpstart you like so far into like picking features and investigating specific features. Also, Egan, my coworker, just joined the chat. What's up, Egan?
What up, Egan? Egan, and we got Keith in the house too. But yeah, predictive power score, definitely adding that to the repertoire. I'll add a link to the GitHub documentation in the show notes as well. But yeah, that's how I would start. I would start with, okay, let me just take my data set as is after doing whatever reasonable amount of cleaning that you need to do. Fit a random forest, get a baseline result, and then think about how you want to go from there. Have you heard of PyCaret? Anybody here?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's the AutoML, right? And it's caret, but in Python.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good way to quickly try to determine a spot check of several different models. So try to spot check something, see which one has a relatively decent predictive power, and then have that be a baseline, and then proceed from there.
Perfect. So I started with the linear models, and then I was going to say that I went on trying the tree-based models, and then after that I ended up with the stack regressors. So that's the approach which I follow.
Did you get progressively better and better on your metric? All right.
Yeah.
That's good. You're moving in the right direction, right? So just make sure that you're not overfitting or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just dumping information about predictive power score. It's cross-validated single feature decision trees using either MAE or F1, weighted F1, depending on the Y. So, and then it's scaled to between 0 and 1. So
definitely have to play around with that.
Yeah, a better correlation, apparently.
Hasib, I don't know if that fully answered your question or if you're more confused than when you joined. But either way, let us know.
No, I think I'm good. I got my answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Like if anything comes up in the next half an hour or so, we're here. So
perfect.
Feel free to jump in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So we got, what's up, everybody else? Egan, Keith, Mark, Carlos. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
Doing good.
Dude, real happy to see everybody here, man. It's getting it popping. I like it. So
I actually have a question if we're allowed to ask, or should we put it into the chat?
No, go for it, man.
This is just free talk.
Perfect. So maybe mine's not specifically on like actual data science kind of technical components, but more so on the how to get alignment for different teams who are similar, but you need to kind of get these data science processes across. So to give context, I'm approaching about 1 year as a data scientist. And in my specific role, I'm bridging the gap between the engineers and the researchers, and getting the cool stats and research work into the engineering hands in a way that's really aligned. And what I've been noticing a lot is that engineering has a lot of different perspectives of like how to structure data. And as a researcher and just doing stats, you want your flat files to work with that. And so I guess like how, if you've dealt with kind of like bridging that gap between research and engineering, how to best kind of serve both needs.
Are you more skilled at the research side or the engineering side?
I would say that I would say it's neither. It's more so I'm more skilled in engineering than the researchers, and I'm more skilled than at statistics and the research than the engineers.
Pretty much.
Hence why they put me in this.
Yeah.
That's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
Everyone else can answer. I have my own response. I'll give after.
I mean, you got like, okay, so most engineers are very lazy, right? So if they're not doing something in the way the researchers would like it, it's because they're probably defaulting to some lazy methodology that they have to get stuff done. This is just my experience. Don't mean to generalize software engineers out there. But like, what is the misalignment like? Tell me a little bit more on that. Like, so like, is engineering like, nah, everything's going to go into blobs? And
yeah, I think the best way I can describe it is that, engineers need to be able to query data and pull data in real time. And that requires different structures of the data to ensure that happens. For the analytics side, and that's, I'm gonna bunch that into like just the researchers, we don't need our data to be pulled in seconds. We can do a SQL query, it'll run in 5 minutes, and we'll be happy. But that's not acceptable for our product. And so we're really happy just having our flat file set up. And so where that's coming across is that I'm at a startup. It's very engineering focused first because they're trying to get the product out. And so I have to do a lot of reworking of the data, massaging to get it into a flat file for the analytics side. And I think what that really it comes out to being is that the data works really well for engineers to get product out, but the data is really not as accessible to the overall org to drive that kind of those data insights. And so that's where I'm trying to figure out how to bridge that gaps where it's both usable by the engineers, but also like anyone in the company can access this data in a very easy focused way.
So you guys are doing analytics and data science on live data, like on production data? Like, you guys not have a sandbox?
I'm trying to figure out how much I can talk about for my company.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it like big data and like crazy volume based thing. But like at the end of the day, like we're a product, we have a web app, and like we have information where we collect our own data.
Okay. How hard would it be to set up just a sandbox for you guys, and you can build a pipeline that goes from the raw data, dumps it into whatever sandbox space you guys have for the analytics team? That's how I've seen it done at last few companies I've been at.
I'm sorry, is that I didn't hear that wasn't the problem statement in my head. Am I misunderstanding something?
So the thing is, like, I still like we do have kind of like a dump of the data into a SQL kind of database we run SQL off of. But the way it's structured, it's still structured as an engineer format. It's just a copy of it that can use SQL on. So I have to do a lot of SQL steps just to pull out data. I think the best way is a lot of nested data for things.
Can you build out a pipeline like just in Python, right? That just automates that whole process, right? Where anytime new data comes in, it goes through the transformation steps that you've laid out and just gets appended to the table that you have, and Perfect. Have that run in batch overnight or something.
Yeah, awesome. No, that sounds like I'm happy to hear that, because that's what I've been thinking. And then the next step after that is like the kind of concern I'm trying to see is like, how do I prevent having two different sources of truth then?
You don't have a second source of truth. You have a set of functions, whether it be Lambda or something, that will apply to the single source of truth, giving you a derivative source. You should never trust your output. your output's irrelevant. What you care about is like, you built the pipeline and you care about the pipeline health. If it accidentally gives you garbage one time, no big deal. You just throw it away and start over. But what I was hearing you say is like, you're trying to figure out how to translate between the engineering and statistics people. And all I can tell you is, if you're in a startup, like that's probably not the problem. Like you need to be figuring out who the people who are generating tons of value are and bias everything to them. Like whoever the constraint is, whoever the 10x engineer is, like you are making sure that nothing is ever in their way. If the stats people are in their way because they don't know how to deal with non-relational databases or something, then that's where you plug in. You're the person in between the two. But like, don't wonder if you should be telling engineers to change their practices to fit the stats people, unless the stats people are driving the profit. Like you just got to figure out who's driving the value and make sure that they're the ones getting all the bias in their favor.
Yeah. And I think what I've seen is that both are actually held up pretty high, because like they're like a science first company, but also like we need to build it. And so it's an interesting dynamic, because I've mainly seen the other, where it's like the engineers drive everything. And so it's been very interesting trying to navigate that as a data scientist who's supposed to bridge this gap. So no, this is all very helpful.
It's the duality mindset. That's a data scientist is the person that makes that communication happen between technical aspect and the non-technical, even though research is technical. So you have to have a duality mindset, right? And that's the reason why this position exists and why we get paid so much money, is because of this.
Hey, Ethan, you getting paid so much money?
So much. But yeah, I've got some books that might be useful in terms of like leadership philosophy that I definitely think you should check out.
Yeah, I would love to.
So one of them is the Self-Made Billionaire Effect. So this book is a quick read and it's not related to data science whatsoever, but what you could draw away is the principles they have laid out in that book in terms of the duality mindset. So they cover 5 different dualities that these self-made billionaires hold. And it's extremely applicable to the work you do as a data scientist. So check that one out. The other one is Loon Shots by Safi Bakal. And that one, like if you could just look up like the 4 Bush-Vale rules, they are freaking amazing. Loon Shots, Loon shots. Yeah, Loon Shots by Safi Bakal. And yeah, that book is really, really good. And that's all about communications between literally these 2 different types of groups. So I think you'll definitely enjoy that. But didn't really answer your question, but if there's, I'm happy to dig deeper if you have any further questions.
Yeah, no, I think it's a hard question to answer. It's very abstract. Yeah. So this is really helpful just to talk it out and hear other perspectives outside of me and my managers.
Yeah, I think go on.
I was just gonna just be careful trying to scale too soon, because that can derail you too. Like if the engineers are spending hundreds of hours a week as a team on like getting queries from 4 minutes to like 4 seconds, that might be a waste of engineering time. So just be careful scaling too soon. Only scale when it hurts. And I was gonna say, recommend Phoenix Project, Unicorn Project, just to help you understand like the importance of DevOps and like how constraints work. Because it sounds like if you're the only person interfacing between stats and engineering, as the organization gets bigger, you're going to become more of a constraint in terms of making sure that these 2 groups can like interface data correctly, and you don't want to become the constraint either. So
that's a really good point.
Just be aware of like, are you over mature right now? Are you, do you actually know what thing is driving profit? Are you doing the basics? Like, are you doing the A/B testing, or are you trying to get to neural networks too soon?
Thankfully, they're not asking me to do neural networks, and they're very, very much aware of that. But no, you definitely bring up a good point. And yeah, I think that's been my role for the past month I've been there, is just making sure the basics are set up well for them to kind of move forward into like the A/B testing, actually doing the predictive side of things as well.
Yeah, build out that pipeline, get that sandbox for your researchers, and just automate it. What platform are you using?
Google Cloud.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you could set up
Yep.
your flow on that really easily. Automate it and stuff.
Harpreet, what was the name of the book you first said
Yeah,
before Loon Shots?
Self-Made Billionaire Effect. Yeah. So
Links in the comments.
yeah, links in the comments there. Yeah, those books are super, like, I think every data scientist should read both of those books because it touches so closely, like philosophically, to the work that we do. And then yes, Carlos says Phoenix Project and Unicorn Project. I recommend Unicorn Project above Phoenix Project because it's more data science-y, but both of those are really good.
Yeah, I like that I read Unicorn Project first.
Yeah.
I do like that I read it first.
Cool, man. So we got Egan, Keith. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Right on. Right on, man. What's going on? What do you guys got planned for the weekend? It's this weekend is a long weekend in Canada. We got Monday off because it's Canadian Thanksgiving. Canadian Thanksgiving.
Snap. I
Yeah.
forgot. I forgot y'all have your own wacky stuff. Sorry, not wacky. Just different schedule.
It's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I'm excited. Get a whole day to do podcast stuff, reading, writing.
I'm going to a pumpkin patch festival thing tomorrow. That's what I'm doing. I was gonna go to the middle of nowhere and get pumpkins. Thank you.
Nice. Socially distanced with that.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person there, probably. Going pretty far.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking the kid to some pumpkin patches at some point in the future.
Hey, how old's your I don't even know your kid's name.
Jagad. Yeah, he just turned 5 months yesterday. So he's in that cute 5-month phase.
Super cute.
Still doesn't move or anything, which is good because just sits there and just plops there and just like talking to himself, going meh, 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 meh.
Oh.
But it's cute, man.
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna do a podcast after you have one running around just in circles, jumping on your stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna be challenging.
It'll be cute.
Yeah.
Bring him on the podcast. Everyone wants to see him.
I'll bring him by next time. Yeah.
Egan, what are you working on right now? I haven't seen you in like months. It's been like 8 months since we did that that project that didn't go anywhere. This completely got abandoned.
Right, yeah, it's been a fun 2020. Let's see. I'm working on still the stuff with Fred for the genetic counselors.
I didn't know you were involved in that.
Yeah, that was the one you introduced me to.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that was a nightmare, man. The Docker containers would never work.
Oh, it was bad. It was a similar problem to what Mark is facing, where it's like you have people who are using data to generate analysis reports for publishing, and then you have people who are using the same sort of data to configure it for a R Shiny application. So balancing the duality there was a real pain in the butt. Yeah, that's been my jam lately.
Especially if like this is something I think you guys that are in internal data science don't realize, but when you are a consultant, you are like totally relying on client infrastructure. And if your client doesn't have any infrastructure, you're just so doomed. You're just like, okay, because it's not like you can use your own because you have nowhere to port it to.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing like, that thing was crazy, man. It's the biggest Shiny app I've ever seen.
Consulting seems so much fun though, just because the problem statements are constantly changing. But I guess that could also be a pain in the ass as well. Having to switch all the time. It works like when you're assigned to a project, is it like you're only on that one project until completion, or do you have like 4 projects with 4 different companies happening at once?
Entirely depends. Yeah. Egan, what's your setup? Are you dedicated?
So I got 2 projects with Merck. They just pulled me on board for the HPV one. And then I got the one still with F-35. So I'm at 3 right now. So that'll be quite a doozy on my day-to-day stuff. Yeah, you really never know when deadlines will change or priorities will shift, or even if you still have funding and you're like,
Oh gosh. Yeah, I got the email from my client that the continuing resolution from Congress got through. So we're funded, the agency is funded to the 21st of December. And after that, we'll see if the government shut down.
Oh, that's right.
It is,
You do mostly consulting for government organizations, right?
yeah. That and like our healthcare is getting bigger. So he mentioned a pharmaceutical client. I just finished a pharmaceutical client. I was doing childhood blood lead work, doing injury prevention, doing a few other stuff. Right now, I have like just 2, and I'm transitioning to 1. I'm going to be going fully dedicated to a single project. My first time ever. I've never been like embedded before. They're going to like put me inside their team, and they're going to try to forget that I'm a consultant and just treat me like one of them. And like I won't have to like ask my manager to talk to their manager to talk to somebody. I can just talk to the person, which is super new for me. I'm like so used to doing the like hierarchy and like the formality, and it's on purpose. It makes things safer. We don't less misunderstanding, but it makes things slower too. I think in DevOps they call it the square, but yeah, so I'm excited for that.
Nice. Hey, I used to work in pharmaceuticals for like 5 years as a clinical trial statistician. Did not
Luckily,
enjoy that.
we do not do that work.
That was my previous role, and I love it.
Really? Clinical, like,
my background's in
biostatic?
healthcare. My
Yeah.
background's in healthcare completely. So like, I love dealing with this. Honestly, you have to be a masochist to work with healthcare data. And I thought it was just because it was so messy, it was so fun to me.
Yeah, mine was like from clinical trials. So not like healthcare system data, but just like clinical trial data, which was, I think, just like proper academic statistics, like proper design of experimentation and stuff like that. I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I don't know, I just felt like I had to color between the lines too much. I did not like doing that.
I feel like I don't have that skill set in terms of just like true science of like, I'm going to plan my experiment. I'm going to plan every caveat of this experiment. And if anything unexpected happens, I have to pause everything and go back to the experiment plan and add addendums. Like, I don't think I've ever done science in that technical way, which is really cool that you have.
Yeah.
I think it's like a really useful thing. I wish I did.
Yeah, I definitely get a deeper appreciation for the entire scientific method and just the design of experiments. But I feel like it'd be more fun if it wasn't such a highly regulated industry and people's lives were on the line. Because then you have to take it super seriously.
I know if you accidentally like say that a medicine is not effective over placebo and then it actually was.
Yeah.
Too stressful.
Yeah.
This is why people just go work at Netflix. It's like, oh, if I recommend a bad movie, no one gets hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. I like mistakes that don't cost people their lives. That's all good. A little bit of money, whatever. We'll make it back the next quarter.
I just think it's wild though how much pharmaceutical companies are willing to pay for just descriptive statistics as well. But the challenge is that making sure those descriptive statistics have nothing wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like where the challenge is at.
That's why they use like not R, but SAS in those industries, because they're validated, verified software or whatever. Yeah.
Well, it always works.
Yeah.
SAS code from 1980, whatever,
Still works.
run tomorrow will work.
Yeah.
Same exact output. I'm just like, that's such a massive enterprise because the technical debt grows like exponentially in terms of like, oh, like nothing can ever make a mistake. They probably don't even like layer modules. They're just like, oh yeah, we implemented like this gradient descent algorithm and we're never gonna change it. We're just gonna fork it, copy it, and make a second. It's like all their new stuff just also has new foundations because they don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think about. I don't even know how anyone would do that.
Yeah, it was not fun. Right on, man. Keith, how's it going?
Going well. I actually came from, before I started getting into data science, I came from chemistry background,
Nice.
doing FDA work.
So like when you're colliding chemistry and data science, let's say there's somebody out there who's like maybe a master's or PhD in chemistry and they're trying to transition into data science, but they are looking for a project that kind of combines these two together into something that they could build a portfolio around. What would be an interesting problem statement in that area?
It would probably have something to do with instrumentation or even laboratory information systems.
Okay.
Getting lab information systems to work together and communicate with laboratory notebooks and stuff like that. Combining the instrumentation with notebooks and output for reporting.
I wonder if there's any open data sets that deal with that, because I mean that would be a really good like project for somebody to do. Because I think if you're transitioning into data science from like a completely unrelated-ish field, the best thing you could do is take what you already know and collide it with data science and just make a project, because that way you have the knowledge and expertise in one domain to drive you and propel you forward to learn how to apply this particular thing that you're learning to a context you already know. If that makes any sense. Just sounds like I was saying a bunch of words, but I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. So what else is everybody working on? So how long you guys been in data science? So I guess we'll start. Carlos, you already been on the show, but Mark, how about you, man? How long you been in data science for?
It will be 1 year next month. So
Nice.
Pretty excited, but like analytics wise, 2 years.
Nice. What was your background coming into it? Were you coming from like a completely unrelated field? Was all this stuff self-taught? What was your journey like?
It was a little bit of a mixture of both. So I got my MS at Stanford Med studying community health and prevention research.
Nice.
And I thought I was going to be going to medical school afterwards. Like I was gung-ho pre-med, got in grad school and realized I hate graduate school. Like I love learning, but like this format's not for me. And at the same time, I was learning R and learning about data. I was like, oh my God, this is the future of healthcare disparities is going to be in data. I want to get in the ground of this. And so I taught myself Python. I taught myself R to do the stats classes. So I got the research and stats from grad school, and then the Python and R kind of self-taught. And I got a first job at a health tech company doing operations, but I forced myself to do data projects on there. So I taught myself Python on the train going from my home to my office in the city, and start implementing Python projects for my workflow, and has leveraged that to kind of break into data science. And also I picked up a second job being a data analyst as well. So a lot of just side hustling to kind of break in.
I absolutely love that, man. Like I think Carlos, that's part of his journey as well. He was just picking up projects that he could do using R. And that's something that's really important to note, is that you could actually do data science work without being a data scientist, right? There's nothing preventing you from using particular methodologies to do your work or particular tech stacks to do your work. If you don't have the data scientist title, like you can inject some of that stuff in what you're doing now. So are you in California right now? Or are you from
Yeah,
there?
I'm in California in the Silicon Valley area and
Nice.
Bay Area.
Is that where you're from?
I'm from California, Sacramento.
Hey, me too. I was born and raised in Sacramento.
Hey,
man,
let's
I was
go.
Born and raised in Sacramento, man. I went to.
That's dope. It's a completely different city now.
Yeah.
Like I go back, I don't even realize it. Like
which part of Sacramento are you from?
I lived all over. So I lived in South Sac. I live in Elk Grove.
Shit! I went to Valley High.
Oh, you went to Valley High? Wow.
I went to Valley High, then I went across the street to CRC, and then
I went to CRC and in
CRC
Sac City.
Too? No shit.
CRC
dude.
in Sac City, and then I transferred to Davis eventually.
Yeah, I went to Davis as well.
That's wow. That's small world. Okay.
I'm probably a lot older than you. I'm like 37, so probably.
I'm 27. 27.
Yeah, 10 years older than you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll link up with you afterwards because you have the same last name as one of my friends. Dilpreet Sahota.
Nah, I don't know him. No.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like I'm from South Sac, like born and raised. Like I went to Valley High and grew up in that
Yeah,
neighborhood and went to CRC.
that's well.
And
So where I grew up is, so you had Valley High, CRC, and the other side, that's where I lived. So I would have probably gone on Monterey Trails, but I went to Christian Brothers.
nice. Okay. Yeah. So there's a pizza restaurant on Elk Grove Boulevard right by 99. You take 99 off like 99 South, exit Elk Grove Boulevard. And on the right hand side, there's a pizza restaurant, Mount Mike's Pizza. That's my family's pizza restaurant. I've had it for
Bruh, I
25
went there
years.
my whole life. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
That is wild. Small world.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Small world.
Yeah, I worked at that place since I was 12 years old. I like even when I came back from like grad school, like I went to grad school in Illinois, and I'd come home periodically, and I just pick up some delivery shifts and mob around town.
Yeah. How'd you end up in Canada then?
That was my question.
Yeah, so I went to.
It's a good choice right now considering current events.
So after I completed some coursework at Davis, I went to grad school in Illinois, and lived in Chicago, and just did grad school out there. Then I met my wife. We met online actually back in 2012, before online was like cool. And I just started visiting her, and I graduated. She was already well established up here in Canada, in Winnipeg. So she went to grad school in Chicago as well. She studied to become an optometrist, moved back, was already well established as an optometrist here in Canada. When I left grad school, like I had like a job as an actuary, and it just didn't make sense for her to uproot and come back to the States. So I was like, all right, well, let me try to move to Canada. And I was looking for jobs in actuarial sciences at the time, but there were no jobs in Winnipeg in actuarial sciences, but there was a job as a biostatistician. And I was like, oh, I could probably do that job. Same skill set, just different application. And so I worked there.
That's a lot of confidence, man. I would not think that I would have any bio stat. Like I have no biology. I thought you were all math and all stats.
Yeah, I don't know shit. I still don't know shit about biology. I had to learn it. I had to learn it while I was on the job, but it was all statistics. I could still design an experiment, right? I could still talk to the scientist and figure out what it was that their primary endpoint was. And once we have a primary endpoint, all right, cool. This is how we're going to design the experiment to test that. And yeah, you don't need to know biology to be a biostatistician.
Nobody knows that, by the way. Nobody knows that's true. I thought biostats
I didn't know that either.
So much biology.
Nah.
Like we have people on our team with like PhDs and that stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, like I did protein folding as a biostatistician before this. And I was like, proteins fold? Like, no.
Yeah. I definitely picked up a shit ton about biology along the way, just working with the scientist, learning a lot about viruses and shit like that for sure. But
Come save us.
Yeah. Well, my company is one of the company. Well, my former company, I haven't worked there in years. Well, not years, like 2-3 years, but they're working on a COVID-19 vaccine. So yeah.
I'm happy to hear that every country just has like 7 people all working on it. It's like 7 companies, just everybody's on this thing. Every time I get stressed out about it, I'm just like, well, we have the most brilliant people and the most amount of money ever.
Yeah.
Like behind this thing. So this is like a human species like project. And I think we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. My cousin works at Eli Lilly. He's technical writer there. And he said they're going hard on the COVID trials. Like they're getting shit pushed through real quick. So hopefully get something sorted out soon.
Not too quick, right?
Stay cozy at home. But yeah, it'll still take time just because going through trials and shit like that.
This is not related at all, but I forgot. So some guy reached out to me asking about some help and mentorship, and I said, hey, I hope you saw my post. Like, you guys got to come visit this open office hours, blah, blah, blah. I've been posting with this open office hours for like 3 days already.
Yeah.
And I said that he couldn't make it because he's in India, so it's like 3 a.m. for him. But I said I would ask his question for him, and then I would make sure he got it. So I'll do that really quick now.
Yeah.
So he's a system engineer. He has a few years of experience. Before that, he was a data analyst, not doing too much stuff. He wants to do more data science, but it's not that he's not getting interviews. It's that he doesn't really know what he should be saying in interviews. So like assuming his resume is good and everyone's happy to talk to him, the prep of like, how do I talk about this in an intelligent way that's not over people's heads? That's where he's not really figuring things out. So I guess the question then is like, yeah, how do you do a data science interview with someone who's not technical and also sound competent but not overwhelming?
I mean, how do you end up in a data science interview with somebody who's not technical? So that would be my question.
Okay, sorry, ignore that part. That's the HR screen, whatever. You're technical. Same question.
So, I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it, man.
I was about to say, like, for like interviews I've gone through, because I just went through, I got laid off, went through this whole interview process not too long ago. Is that you'll probably interview like who are non-technical, like stakeholders who interact with the data science team. So maybe it's like customer success or like some business unit that they want to make sure like you interact well with them. And I think that the key thing that helps at least me is that I talk to people who are not into data science about my projects or about what I'm interested in to just get the practice and the reps, and then read their body language. Are their eyes glazing over? If they are, all right, don't say that to non-technical people, and like test it out with different things. And then I think the other thing is instead of focusing on kind of like the technical problem, kind of focus on the value problem. So like, I'm doing this technical thing to solve this problem. And so if you focus the conversation on not the how you got there, but like the kind of overarching concepts to like drive value, I think that's what the non-technical people are looking for, is like, how can I use this data? That's the magic that you do behind there, right? But like, how does that equate to value to me and like meeting their needs?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Right. And you don't need to go into detail about all the math, especially if you know who you're talking to is not going to understand it. Then what's the point? So there's.
Well, I think people have this idea that you got to be super impressive, and and I'm not sure.
What is impressive is being able to explain something super complex and difficult in such a way that the person who is hearing you explain it walks away feeling like, oh shit, I could be a data scientist now. I fucking get this shit, right? That is impressive. Using a bunch of big words, trying to confuse your audience, speaking in an unclear manner, that is a mark of a person who probably doesn't know what they're talking about fully, right?
Something I've noticed too is like when people do know what they're talking about, if you start off really simple, they'll funnel down and ask you more and more complicated questions.
Yep.
And that's helpful on both ends, because when the interviewer gets to learn like, where's your limit at for knowing this? And then you get the chance to say when you get to that limit, I actually don't know that. And then you can turn that around, like, what are your thoughts? And that's actually helped me kind of get pretty far in interviews as well.
Yeah, and a magic phrase you can insert at any point you feel the temptation of getting technical is just pause and say, I can dig deeper into this. I can go into as much detail as you would like. Just let me know, right?
I think it's important. The meta interview. It's like, I'm doing an interview to answer your questions, but also we're doing this interview as a performance. So let's make sure we're on the same page in the performance before I continue with my lines. I think that's a really good point.
It's a very good analogy. Very good analogy. Yeah. So yeah, you could tell him that this will be posted on the podcast and on YouTube on Sunday. He could listen to that response. And if he wants more guidance, you could always sign up for Data Science Dream Job, dsdj.co/artists70. Kyle is giving us 70% off for the course registration. What do you get as part of Data Science Dream Job? Well, you get to interact with me like this 3 to 4 times a week. I teach classes once a month there. There's an active Slack community, so I can answer any questions you have on that. Not only me, but there's a bunch of other mentors. We got John Sebastian, Lediona, Chris.
I miss teaching for real.
Yeah, I'm teaching a class tomorrow on what was it? I've been working on this presentation all week. Like the topic is escaping me. How to actually make an analysis, how to actually like plan your work out. And yes, exactly. Yeah. Because believe it or not, a lot of people, like when they get a data set, they're just like, fuck, I don't know what to do. Like I'm just stunned into inaction. All right, cool. Well, now we got a blueprint for you. You can figure it out
Is
exactly.
that really true? I worry that people get a data set and they just like open it up and they're like, okay, Y on X, blah, 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 throw things at it, and they like don't pause. It's interesting to hear that people are shocked and they don't know what to do. I'm worried that people do too much too soon.
In my experience, I mean, we've had 2,500 plus mentees, and the most common theme I've seen is people just do not know how to start. They're just
so interesting.
Yeah, they're just too scared to start because they don't want to make a mistake. So they're so fearful of making a mistake that they just prefer not to act and prefer guidance. But yeah, for this course I'm teaching tomorrow, it's just like a blueprint on how to proceed at a high level through your project. Cool. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Really appreciate you guys coming on and spending an hour with me. If you're listening on the podcast, the link to the YouTube will be up. So if you want to see all these exceedingly handsome gentlemen, you can do that on YouTube. And keep an eye out on the podcast. Got some great episodes coming up next week. Take care. Have a good evening, and we'll see you all around. Peace.
Thanks, man. Have a good one all. Bye.